You can see the pattern is coming along lovely. This is the end of my first skein of yarn. There's a problem there, which brings me to this. And I kind of dig fun and funky, and also they're two colors that I really like, so that could be an option. I don't know. Hello friends, and welcome to day 4 of Vlogmas. If you are new here, I am traveling around the US with a touring Christmas show, and I'm filling all of my spare moments with crafting, sewing, knitting, and a little bit of visiting all of the amazing cities that we are performing in. So if you haven't seen those vlogs, you'd like to get caught up, there will be a playlist linked up in the top and in the description. And if you are already all caught up, hello, welcome. We are currently in Savannah, Georgia. It was a very long drive. Yesterday we got stuck in traffic, so we ended up being about 8 hours in the bus, had to go directly to the theater, loading in, doing all of the various verifications, and nobody got back to the hotel to check in until about 10 p.m. last night, which means that today, this morning, is the only time we have to visit. And once I eat breakfast, I'm guessing I'm gonna get about 2.5 hours maybe to see the city, and I'm quite excited to do so because I've heard very good things about it. So I'm gonna get some breakfast, and then we are gonna go visit Savannah. So right away we found this amazing looking bookstore which seemed cozy and aesthetic, and apparently had resident cats, which absolutely sounded like the dream to me. What's not to love right there? Additionally, they had a stunning door handle that I just couldn't get enough of, but unfortunately it wasn't open for another hour, so we decided to continue on the walk and swing back on the way back to the hotel. Now, if you've never been to Savannah, one of the highlights of their historic district is apparently the squares. There are 4 original ones, which date back to the early 1700s, and by the mid-1800s, they had reached a peak of 24 squares, of which 22 still exist today, and they're a stunning haven of green in the middle of downtown. If these look familiar at all, it's because one of these squares is actually where Forrest Gump's famous bench scenes were filmed. Plus, right across the street from that bench, we found the cutest cafe with the perfect mix of eclectic furnishings and decor that invited us to sit down for a delicious cup of coffee. It was only a short pause though, because we had so much left to visit. Happy to report that Savannah also boasts excellent tree climbing facilities with amazing and unrivaled views on the harbor, a fact that all of their touristic websites seem to have neglected to mention. After a short visit to the waterside market, it was back to the bookstore. Okay, so really quick summary before I pack up and get on the bus. That was absolutely fantastic. I fell in love with Savannah. I thought it was amazing. The historical district, the waterfront, all of the old monuments and buildings and history, and also that bookstore. I am completely in love with that bookstore. I could have spent the entire day there with the books and the sofas and the kitties that were oh so friendly. My favorite spot was probably this section of the bookstore where they had personal recommendations tucked into every book from the employees who worked there about why that book was special, what made it amazing, and also, yes, you could take those specific books from that section. You didn't have to go hunting around the bookstore for them, which I thought was just an absolutely lovely touch. So if you are in the area, highly recommend the bookstore. But as it was, I had about maybe 10-15 minutes to choose a book and see the entire, store. So I did feel a little bit rushed. That was borderline stressful, but I did walk away with a book. This is what I chose, Hooked. I fully admit it was the art on the spine that caught my eye. Plus, also, I do love like Peter Pan and all the various takes on it, Neverland, Hooked, all that. So looking forward to reading this. It promises to be a dark twist on the classic tale. And yeah, so I'll keep you updated on this if it's any good. And without further ado, I need to get all of my stuff in my suitcase and head out because we are hitting the road again in just a few minutes. Bye! Time for a quick knitting update because, oh boy, has a lot happened. So first of all, this is where I'm currently at. You can see the pattern is coming along lovely. We're starting to get those early twists there, but also we can see that this is the end of my first skein of yarn, which was in fact the second warning sign that something was a bit off, because I have 3 balls of this main color and then 2 balls of the contrasting color. That's all the pattern calls for. But looking at the pattern and where the color gradient between the 2 stops, this, like, for 1 ball to have gotten only this far, there's a problem there. So upon reflection of the situation, I went back and re-examined the yarns and the pattern, and it turns out I have the wrong yarn. So I have yarn type C, when really the one that I was supposed to get was yarn type A, and this mistake is entirely my fault. The seller was very clear about which yarn type I needed, and what happened was that when I was looking online at all the various websites, I was very diligent about checking the gauge and the yarn type, but then I got so excited when I found it in the store that I didn't. And I just went like, oh, look, it's drops alpaca. It's perfect. That's what I need. It's not what I need. So it turns out this is not the right type of yarn. The problem is that the pattern is looking gorgeous. So what I have done is I went ahead and made a swatch on the size needles that I've been knitting this on. So now I have my swatch. I'm going to block it tonight and then do like a little gauge count and do some mathematics to see how much I would need to adjust the pattern to do it with this yarn on this size needle. How many more balls of yarn would I need? So that's where that's at. I would love to be able to continue this with this yarn, but I would need to definitely go out and buy some more yarn. So that's happening, but because I need to go block this before I can take any measurements, and then I need to sit down and like get a piece of paper and a pen and have a clear head with a lot of energy to do these calculations, it hasn't happened yet. But I also did have an 8-hour transport where I was really bored, which brings me to this. Yes, I have taken an entire ball of the other color yarn and started on another project. Now, I don't know if I'm actually going to use this. I was kind of just like fiddling around. I was really looking for something to keep my hands busy on the bus. And I was really not in a mood to edit. I should have been editing these vlogs, but I just wasn't in the headspace for it. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that I'm not going to try and force things when I'm not in the mood. So instead, I whipped out my yarn and went through all of the patterns that I have on my computer because I didn't have Wi-Fi. to find one that looked like it might work with the yarn that I have, given the actual gauge and everything here. And I found one, an economy jumper, super cute pattern. It's actually 3 patterns in one. I'll throw the picture of it up here. And I was very close to gauge. The gauge that I'm using is a tiny bit bigger than what the pattern calls for, but I'm okay if this doesn't fit super, super tight. So this is where we're at. It's got this really cute little pattern going on here, which I'll fully admit that when I was like here in the pattern, it was looking very questionable. I was not 100% convinced that it was gonna look good, but now that I've gotten farther, it's looking kind of cute. It's also looking a little bit small, but that's because the bottom is ribbed and it's really shrinking it in, but it should fit once it's all knit up and such, and also once I block it, everything should relax, so that will help it as well. So that's where I'm at. It's cute. Now I have a dilemma. Do I keep going with this, in which case I will also need to buy more yarn, because I'm gonna need, if this is 1 skein, I'm probably gonna need 4 skeins of this color total to make up the jumper, but also fun fact, I don't have 4 skeins. You know what I could do? This thought literally just hit me. This could be kind of fun. I could make, because the front and the back are theoretically identical, I could do the back one color, this color, and I could do the front this color, and that would use up 4 of my 5 skeins, and then I would just have 1 skein of the blue left to do something else with. And then I guess I would just have to order the correct sized yarn for this project. That could be an option. I don't know. Literally flying by the seat of my pants on this one. So I don't know. I had fully committed to knitting this and accepting that if I didn't like it, if it wasn't the right gauge, or if I needed to use this yarn for something else, I would frog it. And I have accepted that and I can do it, but it is looking kind of cute. So I don't know. Would it be really weird to have a jumper that was 2 different colors, like 1 color on the front and 1 color on the back? Maybe, but also kind of fun and funky, and I kind of dig fun and funky, and also they're 2 colors that I really like, so that could be an option. I don't know, to be determined. That is where I'm at. Lots of knitting has happened. Most of it was unanticipated. I will say that this pattern is very cute and I really like it, and I am bummed that I ended up not having the right yarn for it, because the whole plan all along was just to do a nice, simple, easy knit that didn't require math. And yet somehow I have managed to thwart myself again. So if you've been backstage at theaters for whatever reason, you're probably already familiar with this, but one of my favorite parts of visiting all of these different venues is definitely checking out the wall art. It's a common practice for shows to decorate a section of the wall with art from their show and then have the cast and crew sign it, and I love looking around at all the various productions that played here and admiring the time and effort that gets put into all of these signature walls. What?
Arcade!
So Showtime Story Corner? So tonight's Showtime Story Corner with Shannon has a fun little comedic mishap that happened in the middle of the show tonight. Nothing serious, it was just amusing. It affected basically only me, but that's the best kind of mishaps. So to set the stage for you, pun fully intended, there are 4 sets of double doors in our show. They're on wheels, they open in one direction kind of like saloon doors, and they're used for a variety of reasons, whether that is just to add some depth and visual variety to the stage, or to help tell the story sometimes, or to just literally camouflage entrances and exits of props and artists. Oftentimes it's kind of a combination of 2 or 3 of those reasons, but they feature pretty heavily in the show. There are doors moving the whole time. And the other important part of background information you might need is that I'm one of the first people to work the doors. Literally, the opening scene of the entire show is basically 4 people and 4 sets of doors, and I'm one of those 4 people. So I have this little pre-show routine where I go, I find my door, I check which way it opens because they only open one way, they don't swing both ways like real saloon doors, and then I like position it properly on stage so that I can roll it out without hitting anything on the floor when it's my turn to go. So the show starts. I roll my door out. We have this little moment on stage where everybody kind of switches positions, switches doors. We play with these presents. It's like a whole cheerful Christmas moment. And then there's like a knock on the house and the 4 of us kind of panic and we're supposed to run through our doors and close the doors behind them and hide. So the knock comes, I throw my present in the wheelbarrow, I run to the door and I go to open it and it doesn't open. Now remember that we have changed positions, so this is not my original door, this is a different door, and it's not opening. So my first thought is, okay, maybe somebody accidentally turned the door backwards and instead of opening out, I can just push. So I push pretty hard on the door and it still doesn't open, and I'm like, okay, it's supposed to be like this, like it needs to happen quickly. I don't have time to think about this more, so I just jump around the door and I'm standing behind the door and I'm like jiggling the handle. I'm trying to figure out what on earth is going on, and I hear something out of the corner of my ear and I look in the wings and I can see our head prop guy and he's like mouthing and gesturing to me, and I go, oh, I realized what happened is the doors are latched. They latch the doors on top for transport in the trucks so that the doors aren't like swinging around and banging and getting damaged as we travel from city to city. But what happened is that this door is still latched, and unfortunately the latches, it's a double set of latches and they're up at the top of the door, which is about 3 inches higher than I can reach with my hand fully extended. And I don't really have much time to deal with this because after I go behind the door, I have about 6 to 8 seconds before there's another very obvious music and lighting cue where I'm supposed to open the door and stick my head out and look. And it's really, really obvious because like there's a spotlight that comes on the door, and because there's 4 of us and we're all doing it like on musical cues. So my cue comes and I can't get out, so once again I just like stick my head around the corner of the door and I'm like looking into the middle of the stage, but it's kind of obvious that there's something wrong because the pool of light is focused right on the center of the door where I'm supposed to be, and here I am like off to the side in the shadows. Not a big deal. I'm like, okay, it's just gonna be like this. So then we start with our main section of what I like to call doreography, because now all the doors start moving in patterns, and this one is we kind of go like this and pass each other on stage. I paired up with Phil, so we get in line and we're like starting to move across the stage, and Phil looks at me and he goes, they're latched. And I'm like, yes, I know they're latched. I'm too short to do anything about it. And the doreography is intense enough that there's no moment for him to like stop and reach over and help me because he is right next to me, but he still can't do anything about it. So we've crossed, we hit our marks. Now all 4 doors start moving downstage towards the public, towards the audience. And once again, they all stop in a line, and there's another really obvious music and lighting cue where it goes like door, 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 door. Time out for the ventilation. So there's this really obvious cue, and again, I'm like peeking out from around the side of my door when everybody else is peeking through their door, and it was just pretty funny because it was pretty apparent that there was something wrong, but it was funny because it didn't really affect anybody else. It didn't ruin the flow of the show. Nobody got hurt. After the show, the prop guy came and grabbed me and was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. He explained what happened, and he was like, what happened was that we didn't do a queue to queue, which is true. It's the first city where we didn't do a queue to queue because while we did them at the beginning, we are now sort of weaning off of them because they take a lot of time and everybody's starting to get to know the show much better. So unless there's a really unusual setup in a theater, which probably will happen down the road, we're for the most part not doing queue to queues, but that's exactly where people were unlocking their own doors, and like as people were walking through the blocking of the show and where the props are going, the doors got unlatched, and that didn't happen this time. So he said now he has it on his list that he needs to go through and unlatch all of the doors just to make sure that they're open before the show started. So anyways, that was just the fun little story from tonight's show. I hope that you enjoyed it because I thought it was kind of entertaining and amusing. So that kind of conveniently wraps it up for this vlog. I hope that you will join me for the next one where we'll probably get a little knitting update, maybe do a little bit of sewing, get started on the Crazy Quilt stocking because I do have some long days of transport ahead of us. And as always, let me know what you're working on, whether it is crafting or cleaning or cooking. If you have some amazing holiday recipes coming out of your oven, let me know because that is one of the things that I miss out on a lot because we are always traveling for the holidays. We're often in hotel rooms like this. We rarely have access to ovens. So all of the traditional recipes of my childhood often get pushed back until, January when it's no longer the holidays. So if you are doing some tasty holiday baking, be sure to let me know what it is that you're eating. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for joining me this time. Bye.